Don't stop. Like anyone should know. Like anyone should know. You brought the cheese into my life. You plopped it down onto a plate. You made me feel like you didn't know what you were doing. What you were doing. You brought the veg into my life. You sliced it up on that same plate. You made me feel like you didn't know what you were doing. What you were doing. But it was all a simple hoax. You knew exactly what it was. That charcuterie board, it changed my life. It changed my life, yeah! Don't stop. Don't stop. Like anyone should know. Like anyone should know. You brought the dried meat to my life. You placed it all across that plate. You drizzled honey sauce all around the edges, around the edges. You got the stone ground mustard out and pasted it in a little plop. The charcuterie board, it changed my life. It changed my life, yeah! Don't stop. Don't stop. Like anyone should know. Like anyone should know.
Yeah, that's
Never fails to please.
Yeah, I forgot that it went on that long, to be honest.
It's a bit long. And sometimes you got to back up and take some time away and come back and go, you know what? That is long.
Yeah.
And maybe the yeah is
all we need.
Could use a touch up.
I think it's all we need, really. If we
just the yeah.
Yeah, if we just did our little segments, and every now and then I pressed a button and went, yeah.
Oh God, yeah. You need a soundboard.
I do.
And I know and I can nominate a short list of sounds that should never be on it.
Is that one of them?
And you're already thinking of one, I know. And it's probably the one. Well, we're back.
Oh, well, yeah, we're back. It's been an eon. It seems like
it's been a minute, which is not this podcast. That's a different podcast.
That's a podcast. It's been a minute
is a podcast. I believe that's on the NPR network.
Oh, okay. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So on our last episode, we talked to the lovely Veronica Barrera, and that was a lovely conversation. We talked.
It wasn't our last show, Jeckafish.
Oh, maybe it was.
Yeah,
I'm a terrible.
Well, I mean, they were both wonderful,
right?
Incredible, and just a delight to spend an hour with.
They were.
They
were indeed.
So yeah, that's big heels to fill for today's guest.
It is, and yeah. I sure hope that it comes to fruition. I'm looking at the list, sir. I was correct. You were wrong. Our last guest was Veronica.
Okay,
that's okay.
My bad.
Okay.
My bad.
No.
And my apologies to Veronica, the wonderful and talented Veronica,
right?
As well as Jessica.
Absolutely. But what have you been up to? I'm going to pretend that we haven't talked to each other in a long time.
Yeah, that we don't connect every other day and share catharsis.
Right.
What am I doing? Let's see. Yeah, there is some work that I'm trying to book for VO. There's a couple of ads and a couple of animations that are out there. The irons are in the fire, but the auditioning is the job, as they say.
Right.
There's a couple of writing projects that I'm on. One is ours, but we'll save that for another time.
Another time.
You know what? We might need to save it for our next guest, but anyhow,
we might.
I'm getting some of that kind of writing done, and also doing the day job freelancing, which is an entirely different kind of writing. And working on my house and enjoying life. Who's the person said take a bite out of the ass of life? I'm doing my best.
Walken?
No, I don't. Well, somebody of his, probably like somebody close to him. Or you want to do the impression, don't you?
I do.
Yeah,
that's it. It's a horrible
That's what I've been up to. What have you been occupying yourself with?
I have been occupying myself with just a load of assortment, a cavalcade of fun and I think kindness has been my word since the beginning of the year.
Okay.
I've been trying to imbue the world with kindness as much as I can.
Yeah.
The one thing that I just finished up, and actually someone who has just chimed in our chat was helping me with this.
Mm-hmm.
I was teaching voiceover improv class.
Oh, that's right. How did it go?
I thought it went tremendously, and I think
Yeah.
everybody who was involved really enjoyed it as well. We had 4 classes, and nobody wanted to stop. They all wanted to keep going. So
that's a good sign.
It is a good sign. But yeah, that's kind of one thing that I've been up to. The other thing that I've been up to is auditioning for things on stage. Sorry, I'm moving my phone because it was bothering me.
Mm-hmm.
Auditioning for things on stage, and our next guest I'm actually working with right now on a show, and that show is going to be here in Savannah starting April 18th and running through May 5th.
May 5th.
Yes.
In Savannah, Georgia.
In the wonderful suburb of Savannah, Georgia, the wonderful city of Savannah, Georgia, I should say.
What's the website so I can look it up?
That website is, I believe it's savannahcabaret.com.
Okay. We'll put notes in the doobly-doo, as
we'll put that,
as the blog brothers say.
Actually, I'll just type it in now. So
there you go.
Cabaret.com.
I would be there. I'd already have tickets for 2 nights if I didn't live 1,000 miles away.
I know you would. You would, sir. You'll be there in spirit.
I will.
Yeah. So that's what I'm working on. And, as long as we're talking about that, we should go ahead and bring on our guest.
I think so. I'm excited. Do you want to give, before we open the curtain, can we give a little bio about our guest today?
Well, we could certainly try.
I mean, a brief.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just read his IMDb page. It's great. He approved it.
You're absolutely. I think you had it pulled up just a little while ago. So I'm going to leave this to you, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, hang on. Let me see. I'm on the little screen, so let me get this.
Okay.
This is a couple of words, so hang on.
All right.
Tonight's guest. Oh, this is also going to be problematic. The screen is cutting in and out. I'm hoping it'll stay on through the entire thing. Tonight's guest grew up in Iowa, and although he appreciated his solid Midwestern upbringing, he moved to Los Angeles as soon as he was old enough to be sure that the parents couldn't send a sheriff to bring him back. He studied theater at the prestigious American Academy of Dramatic Arts, but soon realized that acting was not his passion. Writing was. He is an award-winning playwright with honors, including the GLAAD Media Awards for Outstanding Los Angeles Theater Production, a television writer with several TV movies and or in development, and travel writer with more than a dozen guidebooks about Las Vegas, including Frommer's Las Vegas for Dummies. The screen just cut out. And it's back. And Moon Handbooks. We got to ask about Moon Handbooks. Our guest enjoys taking road trips to see colorful bits of Americana and counts Savannah, Georgia as his favorite city in the world. In his spare time, you'll probably find him on the couch binge-watching TV. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the wonderful and illustrious Rick Garman.
Hi, everybody.
We don't have canned applause.
I know.
Sorry, shutting it off.
No, I don't have any canned applause, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'll work on that for next time.
Okay.
Awesome. Welcome.
Nice. Thank you.
How is your day? What have you created today?
What have I? It's been a lot of busy days recently. I just finished writing 6 movies in about 8 weeks. And then immediately launched into this massive production of Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein that we are doing for Savannah Cabaret. And then all those movies that I wrote, they're coming back to me for rewrites. So it's been day after day of a lot of work. Today was mainly about Young. I worked on some of the rewrites this morning. I went and did some interviews, and now I'm here. There might have been drinking involved.
I think we did. We noticed a bottle earlier.
Did I hear that math right? 8 movies in 6 weeks or 6 movies in 8 weeks? Not that I could do either.
6 movies in about 8 weeks.
And did you have concepts going in, or was that from nothing to delivery?
One of them was a rewrite of somebody else's script, but it was a major rewrite. One of them was a rewrite of my script, but again, it was a major shifts. It was probably 75% new. Okay. One of them was a new idea, that part of a trilogy that I'm working on, and then the last 3 are Christmas movies that are all part of another trilogy that were based off an idea that I had.
Okay, and so before we slam to black and say 10 years earlier, I just want to ask how many Christmas movies does this make that you've got under your belt?
Christmas movies, once these 3 air, I believe it's 17, something like that.
17.
Something like that. I've lost count. Total number of TV movies since 2015 is, I think this year will put me well over 40.
Wow.
In like 7 years. In like 7 or 8 years.
So that's the beat that we have to come back to.
Yeah.
Now, as a creative, I am fascinated, and I want to know everybody's story. How did you get here? Did our parents abuse us? Did we start drinking early? Did we go to the wrong high school?
11 a.m.
How did this go? Yeah.
Well, like you said in my intro, I grew up in Iowa, and to steal, I think it's Rita Rudner's joke. Even as an infant, I was bored and tried to crawl to the state line. And so I moved to LA when I was 18 years old. I got into acting school. Acting getting involved in drama when I was a kid literally saved my life. So you know how every school has the fat kid?
Sure.
I was not the fat kid. There was one kid that was fatter than me, but he could get you pot. So that made him cool. I was in choir and drama, and each of those things adds 10 pounds. So I was like the de facto fat kid. Anyway, so I had a really, it wasn't, my parents never beat me or burned me or threw me in the closet or anything like that. They were good people, but it was still a rough childhood being the fat kid and bullied a lot. So anyway, but drama, that saved my life. And I decided I wanted to be an actor. So I moved to LA when I was 18 and went to acting school for a couple of years and graduated and went on one audition and said, no. I walked out of that audition. I still remember this. I remember very little about my 20s, but I remember this. I walked out of the audition. It was almost like I had a vision of what my life was going to become, and it wasn't pretty. It ended poorly and early. And so I knew enough about myself to know that I just didn't have the fortitude to deal with what it takes to be an actor. Okay. So I started bumming around doing odd jobs and eventually wound up at a theater company in Los Angeles. I was their administrative director. And this was the late 80s, early 90s-ish. One of the company members had passed away from AIDS. It was during that time. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to do a play about AIDS, but all the plays that were out at that time were the word I often use about that era, they're very strident. And rightfully so. They were trying to get people's attention and were very angry for good reason. But that just wasn't our audience. So I've said this many times before, but being filled with hubris, I said, I've been in plays, I've said plays, I've seen plays, I can write a play. What the hell?
So yeah, that's what I wanted to ask, which is up to this point, you have never played with writing, talked about writing, done, the school new play festival, anything like that?
No, I mean, I'd done creative writing in high school, just like, but not any kind of theater or movie or TV or anything like that. No, never.
Okay. So then we've arrived, and you think you're, as we so often do, you think you can stare down a white page and put something on it.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
So I wrote a play, and the idea that I had, it is called 17 Days, and it tells the story of a singer, a famous singer, who goes back to the home that he grew up in Iowa, and his 3 sisters, adult sisters, all come back. Their father has passed away, and they have 17 days to clear the house out so the new owners can move in. And the singer, he has AIDS and has decided that he's going to go public with that information. So this was before Magic Johnson. This was before, any of that kind of stuff. And his family doesn't want him to. So it's a family drama. And the first draft was, there was at least one scene for every one of those 17 days. So it was like a 3-act play and would have been 4 hours long. It was ridiculous. But we pared it down, and we got it down to, I got it down to, a solid 2 acts, and then showed it to people at the theater, and they liked it, and they did it, and it won some awards, and it made a big splash in LA. It got great reviews, and some guy called me the next reviewer called me the next Tennessee Williams, and so I got this big head. Oh my God, I'm going to be a famous playwright. I even got a license plate. My license plate spelled out playwright.
Feels rash.
It was a little rash. But there's no money in being a playwright unless you're, maybe Lin-Manuel Miranda. So I kept working, but I kept writing. I'd found that thing that I loved doing. I loved creating characters and being in that theater and hearing people laugh, seeing people cry, like it openly sobbing, right. At something that I had written. There's no feeling like that in the entire world. It's a drug. It's a good drug. So I'm like, well, this is it. This is what I want to do.
No, out of a great success out of the gate.
Yeah.
Something for a lot of people to aspire to. And good write-ups, and also figuring out that, like, oh, this is it. Yeah. At that age.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just know the names of the couple of the places that you worked. So I'm curious about how those transitions
how
happened.
That got there. Well, going back to my Midwest upbringing, I believe that I probably could have had success as a writer earlier on in my life if I didn't have that Midwest work ethic drilled into me, which was, you have to have a job, you have to have health insurance, you have to, I was not the type of person, I was never the type of person who could wait tables and, live in a, with 10 roommates in a crappy apartment in Reseda. I wasn't that, I couldn't do that. So I had to have a full-time job. And at first I worked in the entertainment industry after I left the theater that I worked at, who wound up doing another one, a play that I wrote, because I started writing plays. I was writing all these plays, and they eventually did another play that I wrote called Mountains. That's the one that won the GLAAD Media Award. But one of the things that I always tell writers, if you want to make a career as a writer, most writers, not all, but most writers are terrible at promoting themselves. Sorry, it's my Vesta board. You can see that back there in the corner. I've got one of those like airplane, old airport boards, that flips the letters. Forgot to shut it off. Anyway, and it's still going. If most writers are not great at promoting themselves,
Right.
there's a reason why we sit behind computer screens and don't talk to people. And
Yes.
so one of the most important things for a writer is to have a very strong advocate, to have an agent, to have a manager, to have, I don't know, a best friend who will go out and sell you if you can't sell yourself. I was terrible at selling myself and didn't have a strong advocate. So nothing ever really happened. I had these huge successes in LA with theaters and awards and all that other stuff. And then it just didn't happen. So I kept writing, but I kept working. So I worked on some movies. I worked in the record industry. I worked for Madonna for a little while. Yeah. And then I know believe me, there's lots of stories there. Most of which I would probably get sued if I told. Anyway, and then I transitioned in the late 90s. I remember seeing an opportunity for a new internet startup. And again, everything was a new internet startup because the internet was new in the late 90s.
I was there. We were there.
Exactly. And I remember talking to my dad and saying, hey, should I take a chance on this internet thing? And so I did, and started working in the internet world as a content producer. The companies that I worked for created games. So there were free games, like remember Bejeweled and all those kinds of games.
Sure.
That's what we did.
Okay.
And then I worked my way up in the internet industry. I started working at one point. I worked at Yahoo Games. I was in charge of most of Yahoo Games for a little while, a big chunk of it. Then I moved over to Disney, and I was running the production team that was responsible for Disney.com. So it was, I started building and building and building this resume within the internet world, but I kept writing because it was my passion and it was therapy. And it was one of the best things that I did because it allowed me to build a shelf and to have ideas and to have done spec scripts and so on and so forth.
I want to interrupt you just for a second.
At any point, I'm just blathering. So
no, you're good.
Yes, the shelf. Let's talk about the shelf.
Yeah.
So we understand the shelf. We know the shelf.
Yes, the shelf is important. And I'll give you a great example of why the shelf is important. So somewhere around 2005-ish, through a friend of a friend of a friend, I met up with a producer, a woman named Gail Lyon, who had, she produced Erin Brockovich. She had a lot of credits. And she was looking for projects to take to Suzanne Daniels, she had created the WB. She was the head of the WB when it founded. So she was responsible for Buffy and Charmed and, all those shows that the WB launched with. Suzanne had created her own production company, and they were looking for things. So when Gail and I started talking, I said, well, I've got like 9,000 ideas and a bunch of done scripts. Let's talk about them. And we picked one that we both sort of vibed on. And we went and set up a pitch meeting with Suzanne Daniels and took this in. We pitched it. And at the end of the meeting, she said, well, that's good, but we're really looking for a big idea. So this is when Lost was hot and Desperate Housewives, that era. So they were looking for the big concept stuff, the really huge stuff. And so I was able to pull out of my whatever. I said, okay, well, how about this? And in 60 seconds, I pitched this other concept that I had we had a full Bible for it, like the whole thing. Because I just written for years, I pitched that in 60 seconds and she went, yes, that's what we want. And that wound up getting, the pitch got bought by 20th Television, and we took it around to networks. And the story that we were told is that we made it into sort of a head-to-head competition at NBC. We were told that NBC was in a bidding war with CBS over a show that was similar tonally to ours. It was a very different show, but had a similar sort of dark into the world kind of vibe. And we were told that by the people at NBC, if they win that bidding war, they were going to take that other show. But if they didn't win the bidding war, they were going to take our show.
Oh,
Okay.
That other show was Heroes.
oh,
So NBC won that bidding war. They took that show. They didn't take ours. We ran over to CBS and say, "Hey, we heard your word." They didn't want it.
huh.
And then again, nothing happened. So it was one of those almost. We got some attention. We got, I got some attention and things like that, but it never happened. So again, I kept writing. I would have dumb ideas for movies or TV shows, and I would write them down. I started creating, at first I created a document called Idea Factory, and it was like 30 pages long. Now it's literally a database. It's got like 400 things in it. Like
Oh my God.
any idea that I think of, hey, that might make a cool movie or a cool TV show or a cool book or play or whatever, I put it in this database. So that I'll flash forward and then come back to how I got there. When people come to me today and say, hey, we want to do a movie about a 60-foot guinea pig. See what I did there? I can say, I have three concepts or scripts about a 60-foot guinea pig here, and it's done. So I have this continuing to write and making sure that you're cataloging all your ideas and you're familiar enough with your ideas that on the fly you can pitch those things. It is so important in this world.
Mhm.
I've got to. I want to ask questions on behalf of the people that would potentially be watching this.
Please.
And I've got a half dozen, but I do want to. But I always want to
Go for
come
it.
back to where we left off. So one of them is, obviously, you're already a little annoying because you had some success with your very first attempt.
A lot of noise.
It's like, I mean, like how many
Give me some
people,
credit.
how many went to school and like, had a couple of student plays under their belt and came out and just couldn't make anything happen. I don't damn you that, but how did you, you talked about marketing yourself, and then you sort of moved right along into, I spoke to this person and I worked for Disney, and it's the questions I think are just generalistic around that of like, was this through people that you knew? Was this cold calling for a job saying, hey, I'm a writer, put me on your staff?
No.
Was this being a stringer? Like how did you find that sustaining writing job while you were at home pouring your heart onto the page?
So I didn't work when I was working at Disney. It was not a writing job. It was for Disney.com. So
Okay.
no, my day job was in the internet world. I was an executive in the internet world. So we were producing websites.
All right.
So no, but I would write at night. Maybe,
Thank you for that clarification.
yeah, maybe sometimes during the day, during work. No, I never did that. Anyway, no, nights and weekends, that's what I would do is I would write. But during the day, I was managing a team of a dozen people who were creating Disney.com.
Okay.
The programming elements of Disney.com.
Front end HTML, CSS, DHTML.
Yeah, well, I mean,
those
it's
good things.
Yeah, content programming. So we had to deal with all the different Disney divisions about. No, we want to be on the homepage. No, we want to be. And then creating and making sure all that stuff happened.
I know this work. Okay, so we'll skip off that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think the flashing forward to where we left off of the shelf and the Heroes, which I would love to know your story because I was ultimately so disappointed in Heroes.
Yeah, it was great the first
season. And a friend of mine was in it.
Oh, really? Okay.
And you'd know him because he was the only black dude, and they killed him immediately. Well, sorry, killed him episode 1 of season 2. But anyhow, that's a different axe to grind. So you're starting to get into this place where you're writing every night. I guess my question is, how were you tempted by distraction, or how did you avoid distraction, or is it just not a problem?
If there's something I'm passionate about, I don't have a problem focusing. It just, it's finding the things that sometimes I get, like enamored by an idea, and I just have to chase it down. It gets in my head and it won't let go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to write it. Even if nobody's asking me to write it or paying me to write it, it gets in my head, and it's like those characters want to come out. They want to be born, and they're not going to leave me alone until they do. A little crazy, I guess.
That's interesting. Okay.
But yeah, so the TV stuff almost happened, but didn't, and I got an agent out of it. But then when the deal didn't happen, and they wandered away because there was no money in me. And so I continued working in the internet world. Again, I worked at Disney until like 2011. And then I got laid off, which happens a lot in the internet world. This is part of the story. I'm happy to talk about it, but it's not an important part of the writing process, but it's important to my part of the story. Back in 2005-ish, I was diagnosed with a condition called Barrett's esophagus, which is where the acid in your stomach it's basically heartburn, goes up into your esophagus, and it starts to damage the lining of your esophagus. That can make you prone to cancer, to esophageal cancer. So heartburn causes cancer. It's important to know that.
Good to know.
But every year I had to go get an endoscopy for them to monitor to see if it was making any progress. Well, when I was laid off, I didn't have health insurance. I couldn't get an endoscopy, couldn't afford it. Took me a year to get a job. Finally got a new job running websites for Viking Cruises, and immediately went and got my endoscopy, and it had become cancer. And esophageal cancer, which is a bad one. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're all bad. They are all bad. But esophageal cancer is a nasty one. Fewer than 1 in 5 survive longer than 5 years. And there was just a thing that just came out that gastrocancers are now the fastest growing types of cancer among all people. So anyway, I got cancer. It was awful. I got over cancer, and didn't write a lot during that other than sort of writing down my journey. And I was looking for something to write after cancer, and the idea that came to me was for a novel. And it was literally, I'm not making this up. People don't believe me when I tell them the story. I was outside the building I was working at, and across the street was this big empty parking lot. And it was a hot day in LA, and there was a dust devil. Everybody knows what a dust devil is. And you know how they're usually kind of wispy, and they sort of spin around and they scamper. This one was in the parking lot, not moving, and it was dense. Like you couldn't see into it. And so it was like a little mini tornado, and it just was stationary. It was just right there, not moving. And I looked at that, and I'm not kidding. The entire idea for a 7-book novel series just landed in my head. The characters, the plot, what happened. Over the next month or so, it became my obsession, and I plotted out 7 books, like an epic thing. And I needed a place to set it, and it dealt with ghosts. And so I did some research and saw that Savannah is called the most haunted city in America. So that's where I set the book. I wrote the entire thing, the entire first one in LA, after doing research and, looking at Google Earth and Street View of different locations that I wanted to do. And then I came here before the book was published for about 3 weeks to do more research and get a feel for the city. And I fell in love. And that is what brought me here to Savannah, which is where I live now. But before that, again, through a friend of a friend, somebody reached out to me with the opportunity to submit an idea for a TV movie. There was a company back, a channel called Pixel that nobody's ever heard of, that doesn't exist anymore, I don't think, PIXL.
But I've heard of it, yeah.
Okay. And the way that they developed their rom-com TV movies was they would come up with cutesy titles, and they would send those out to writers, and they would have writers pitch what they thought that those movies would be. And one of the ones they sent to me was called Late Bloomer, and I came up with an idea of what that movie would be about, sent it in. The friend of a friend of mine who's a talent manager sent in a script that I had written that was just, like a spec script. They liked the writing, they liked the idea, they hired me to write it, and now here I am 40 movies later.
Wow.
And so that was 2015, and by 2017, I was a very well-paid executive in the internet world. I was running the global websites for Viking Cruises, and I was making more money writing movies at night and on the weekends than I was in my high-paying day job.
Wow.
And so at 50, when I turned 50 years old, I sort of looked at my life and what was left of it, and thought about how I almost died and all that other good stuff. And I said, you know what? Screw it. I've wanted to be a writer my entire life, my entire adult life.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And
Right.
so I quit the high-paying executive job with the health insurance and all that good stuff, and I started writing full-time. And a couple of years later, joined the WGA. And again, now I am here in a weird little bit of full circleness. The last movie that I had on Hallmark, Christmas on Cherry Lane, got nominated for a GLAAD Media Award. So I won a GLAAD Media Award for one of my first plays that I wrote in the 1990s, and now I've been nominated again for a new project. So it's a nice little.
And you are honored just to be nominated, right?
You know what? We're not going to win. I have no illusions about this at all. We are not going to win. But in this particular instance, it is a platitude. It is a cliche. But here's the thing. This is the Hallmark Channel we're talking about,
Right.
which has a certain reputation. And the movie that I wrote featured two out actors, Jonathan Bailey and Vincent Rodriguez, as an out couple. So not any kind of like somebody's in the closet and any kind of stuff, getting ready to foster a child. So two out actors playing two out characters, written by an out screenwriter on the Hallmark Channel. It might not be changing the world, but it's not nothing. And so I really am very, very, very honored to be nominated we are all very honored to be nominated for this movie by the GLAAD organization, because it's making strides. I'm happy to be a part of that effort to diversify the programming and to tell more stories.
That's amazing. And I want to come back to that. So
Please.
As you were making the transition from I'm going to use a crude term because I apply it to myself, but you're making the transition from being an internet monkey to chasing your
Web
passion.
monkey. Web monkey is
I think everybody on this panel has had a significant amount of .com experience. The making that transition, I'm curious how you handled the trouble points that you already pointed out, which is, how are you promoting yourself when all of a sudden Viking Cruises is no more, and you have a body of ideas and work that you can take into a room. But I'm curious how you kept the connections alive to get your feet in those doors.
Well, the first thing, I had a manager and still have a manager. It's a different manager than I started with. So it was the person who sent me that opportunity. Again, he was a talent manager, and he became my manager. Right. But it's important to note that in the 7 years now that I've had a manager, I'm pretty sure that this is true. Well, the first manager, he got me into Hallmark. He submitted some of my Pixel stuff to Hallmark. He got me into Hallmark. But with that exception, I'm pretty sure this is true. I'd have to think about it, but I'm pretty sure it is true. None of the opportunities that I've gotten to write these movies have come through my managers. They have not gotten me jobs.
Right. This is an important thing that people want to know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What I did when I first started writing, and I also want to qualify this with, I was in a unique position and remain in a unique position where I don't have a life. And by that, I mean, I don't have a partner. I don't have kids. I don't have pets. Nobody really likes me. I have a few. I don't get invited to brunch a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
I don't even have a plant.
I'm gonna make that happen. I am gonna make that happen, Rick.
All right, I don't have time. And that's my point, is that because all of those things that most people have in their lives that they have to devote time to, for good reason. I don't have to do that. I have none of that. And so I'm able to devote an inordinate amount of time to writing. I was able to do that when I had a full-time 60-hour-a-week job. At nights and weekends, I would just write. I'd be up until 3 o'clock in the morning writing. And what I did when I started getting these opportunities is I said yes to everything. Somebody brought me like the dumbest, weirdest, do you want to do this rewrite? Do you want to, here's an idea we've had. Do you want to write this? I said yes to everything. And at one point I was writing like 9 movies. And what that did is it gave me a reputation of being somebody who knew what they were doing, because I was able to prove it by writing it, who could do it fast, which is important in this world, because Hallmark, as an example, they produce 40, 50, 60, I've lost it. They produce a lot of movies every single year. Mm-hmm. So the turnaround on these things is really, really fast. And I get to work with a lot of producers. And I would always say, and I still say this, anytime I go into a first-time meeting with a producer or a director or a talent, anybody who's going to, I'm going to be working with on a project, I always say, I am the least precious writer you will ever meet. I want to make sure that these scripts are good, that audiences are going to enjoy them, that the actors are going to enjoy working on them, that that it's going to be a good experience for everybody. I want to make sure that these scripts are good. But at the same time, if you come to me and tell me that you want to make the main character a talking dog, I may say, here's why I don't think that's a good idea. But at the end of the day, it's your movie. You're the one who's going to pay me to do it. I'll make the character a talking dog, and it will make it the best talking dog movie that you've ever had. Yeah. So what that did is it gave me a reputation of being somebody who would dive in, do the work, turn in a quality product, and turn it in fast. And so people keep coming to me because they know I can deliver on it. So that early part of this part of my career, of all the weird careers that I've had in my life, it really was about saying yes to everything. Mm-hmm. Take every single opportunity, no matter how weird and dumb it sounds, or how little it's paying. I purposefully stayed out of the WGA for a while, even though I probably could have qualified earlier, because once you get in the WGA, the pool of things you can work on is smaller. Because a lot of these TV movies, especially for the channels that are not Hallmark, a lot of them are non-union projects, and so I can't work on those anymore. But in the beginning, I wanted to work on as much stuff as I possibly could. So it took me until I was tired of paying for Cobra to keep my health insurance going. That I said, okay, now it's time to join the WGA. And
so, what was the second Hallmark movie? So you had the first one.
Well,
then,
so
how did this trend start?
At Pixel, it was Late Bloomer, and then they asked me to write 3 more. So I wrote 4 total for Pixel. Okay. And then that got me into Hallmark. My 5th movie was at Hallmark, which was called Christmas in Homestead. And it was my original idea. And then from there, it's just been one after another, after another, after another.
They just keep calling.
They just keep calling.
Okay, so the Hallmark.
Hence the writing currently, having just finished writing 6 movies in 8 weeks.
Right.
So,
So the signposts that I'm putting up from this interview are: be talented, be passionate.
passionate is important.
A little subhead of be socially unlikable.
Yep.
But be professionally lovable. Like, yes, let's get Rick in here. He's wonderful to work with, but don't ask him to go drinking after. That's a terrible.
No, I'm great. I'm great when I'm drunk. I'm sober. I'm a total. No. Yeah,
I still,
so you're a writer. Yeah.
Rick, I still regret not staying to watch the movie after our read through. Because I still haven't seen it. I still need to see the movie again.
You do need to see the movie. Yes. Gene Hackman.
I know.
I was going to make espresso.
Yes, exactly.
I already got the role, Bradley. Stop.
I don't know. You know what? You shouldn't be influenced. Unless
so we should talk about that.
Unless you're pandering.
You're right.
Yeah.
Because my title here, where's my finger? Right there, is with the Savannah Cabaret. So, I was living in LA. I had written the book. I started coming to Savannah a lot. I was just fell in love with it. I started meeting some people and developing friends here, and bought a place in 2018 and was splitting time. I'd come here for a couple of months of the year, but was still living in LA. And I knew that I would move here eventually, but I figured it'd be way down the road. And then COVID happened, and somebody that I had. It was a friend of mine that I'd known him for a couple of years, but we had just started seeing each other. Nothing serious, but I was interested. I think we were both fascinated about where this was going to go. Anyway, he got COVID and died.
Oh my gosh.
And he was younger than me. He was in his 30s and perfectly healthy, no underlying conditions. And it scared the hell out of me. So because I thought if it can take him down, what chance does a rickety 50-something-year-old cancer survivor have? So I came to Savannah to hide out in my place here. And after a couple of months here, I'm like, why do I want to go back? I was so done with LA. I spent 35 years there. So I thought about it for a while, and then I called a couple of friends in LA and I said, get rid of all my stuff. I'm not coming back. And I didn't. And they literally went to my place and called the junk. I saved a few things and they put it on a truck for me, and everything else went to Goodwill.
Was it one of the things that flipboard behind you?
No, that's relatively new.
Okay.
That's that I bought here. And then when I got here, I missed nothing about LA, nothing, except for the fact that on any given night, if I wanted to go see a show, I had 10 different options. Here in Savannah, that's just not the case. There's lots of great theater here, but it's hard to find and it's not persistent. And so I said, hell, if nobody's going to entertain me, I'll entertain myself. So I created the Savannah Cabaret. I got some people at, friends of mine, incredibly talented friends, singers, actors, dancers, choreography folks. And we started as a cabaret group. Just people singing at a microphone. And we have evolved over the years. I started doing original pieces, original works that I wrote. And now we're doing our first full-fledged book musical, which is Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein. How's that for a segue?
Yes. Smooth as silk. It's beautiful. I like that.
It sounded practiced. I don't know.
Yeah. And anyway, so Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein. So this is the 50th anniversary of the movie, believe it or not. It came out in 1974. He actually released Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, both in 1974. So,
wow. I didn't
know that. Yeah, it's incredible. And this musical, we're doing the West End version of this musical that it's so much fun. It is one of the funniest. I mean, if you love the movie, if you know the movie, love it or like it or whatever, you're gonna love this because it has all the stuff from the movie is in there. All the gags, the bookcase and the hay wagon and the lines. Walk this way and put the candle back and wow, what knockers and all the jokes that everybody knows are in there. All the characters that everybody knows are in there.
Plus more.
A lot more. Some fantastic music, all written. The music and lyrics were written by Mel Brooks himself. but even if so, the songs are just hilarious. But even if you don't know the movie, because it's been 50 years and you can't actually watch it anywhere. It's not available to stream. It's not available on DVD easily. I mean, you can find it on eBay, but even if you don't know the movie, all you need to really know about is the Frankenstein story.
Sure.
So everybody knows what happened with Dr. Frankenstein and his monster. This tells the story of what happens when his grandson comes to town. And let's just say it doesn't go well in a hilariously Mel Brooks kind of way. So it's a lot of fun. It's going to be a great production. And of course, Chris over here is in it. He is playing the Hermit among other roles. So a role that was played in the movie by Gene Hackman, who, by the way, did it uncredited as a cameo for his friend Gene Wilder. So when
you
it was
can't
originally
have two Genes. I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a strict. It's old Hollywood. There are rules.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So Chris has a great show-stopping number called "Please Send Me Someone." He's the lonely hermit.
I was about to ask. Up until this afternoon, I did not know that this was the musical version.
Oh yeah,
and I wanted to know: does Chris Bass have a number?
Yes, he does. He has He has actually one of the few solos. There's not a lot of solos in this. It's a lot of duets and group numbers, but he has a solo, and it's a showstopper. It really is.
I'm really upset now that I'm 1,000 miles away.
Plane tickets, they're cheap. Come on.
Yeah,
exactly.
Gas, airports, whatever.
We'll send you a car.
Right, there you go. And we're also doing some other really cool stuff. So we're doing a charity auction. Every night before the show, we're going to be doing auctioning off a piece of memorabilia related to Young Frankenstein or Mel Brooks. We're going to be raising money for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, which is a fantastic organization that not only helps fund groups that support people with life-threatening illnesses like HIV and AIDS, but they also they fund food banks in every state in the union and overseas. They step in when there are disasters, so they funded a food bank in Maui after the fires there. They funded humanitarian efforts in Gaza and Israel. It's a great organization. But we got
I'll tee that up. If we're not in Savannah, how can we support that cause?
Well, you can reach out to Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS and make a donation, of course. But one of the things about the auction that we're doing is that you have to be here. You have to be in the room because it's an in-the-room auction. We're not going to be doing any kind of other things. But we have some really cool stuff, including, I just happen to have this because I was showing it off earlier. We have a Young Frankenstein vocal score book autographed by Megan Mullally from Will and Grace, who originated the role of Elizabeth. But probably the coolest thing that we got, I reached out to Brooks Films. They got back to me right away, and I told them what we were doing. And Mel Brooks himself, 97-year-old Mel Brooks himself, signed 6 copies of this coffee table book, Making of Young Frankenstein. He signed them just for us. Wow. So Mel Brooks himself signed copies of this book just for Mel Brooks knows who we are. So we're going to be auctioning those off and raising money for a good cause as well. So
he talks about me every morning.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Over coffee. So anyway, encouraging people in the Savannah and surrounding area to come see the show.
Outstanding.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Chris, I've been chewing this poor person's ear off. It's time for you to ask.
You had a lot of questions.
I've just been blathering. I've used up the entire
I'm always
hour.
Honestly, every person we talk to comes from this crazy choice that we've all made.
Yes.
To try and put things out, to turn our backs on the factory jobs and approach a different kind of factory job at times. And how do we approach it? How do we survive it? How do we endure and keep up the tenacity? Tenacity is my word for this week.
That's a good word.
Yeah,
I can add that to my arm someplace.
Right. Yeah, there we go. I do like that word.
Tenacious.
Yeah. Chris, I'm leaving dead air so that you can speak up.
I
feel like
I
I'm
will try
talking-
and fill up that dead air with some dead dialogue, I guess. So Young Frankenstein opens again. It opens
April 18th,
18th, and it runs every weekend until
May 5th.
5th.
So 12
Is it-
performances.
Is it family friendly?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing: we're performing it in the showroom of a nightclub, and so you have to be 21 and up.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Just in general, for future reference for most people, there's some sexual innuendo and things like that. And
I always
so-
like them as the jokes that fly over the kid's head, but then hit the parents in the face.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's
these would be those. Yeah.
well, except for maybe Please Don't Touch Me. I mean,
No, that's true.
She
There's-
sings in
there's a
that.
couple
You know,
lines.
it's kind of hard
Say-
to get
yeah,
past.
the
that
first
one.
time I saw Young Frankenstein, I did not know what Roll in the Hay meant.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
So I was just like, oh, she's just having a great time, I guess.
It's
and
actually
that is one of
rolled
the-
in the hay.
that is one of the songs. It's "Rollin' the Hay," and they're in
Yeah.
the hay wagon, and yeah.
Hmm.
We have Frau Blucher gets to sing "He Was My Boyfriend," which is a line in the movie about Victor. It's such a funny song. There's so many great songs in it, and then of course we have the as I mentioned, Please Send Me Someone. The Hermit gets to do, but the big showstopper is it's a 6-minute long Putting on the Ritz, complete with the monster dancing and top hats and canes and the kick line, the whole bit. So
That's
it's huge.
all right. This is worth attending.
My cane's around here somewhere.
Yeah, are you practicing with your cane?
I am.
We got the canes in yesterday. I told them, take your canes home with you and practice. Don't kill anybody.
Right.
They all signed a waiver, so I don't care.
Don't break your grandma's Hummel collection
Please.
and get it right.
All
Please.
right. So we've got that coming up. So what comes after we close Young Frankenstein?
For the Savannah Cabaret, so we have coming up 3 more shows this year. We don't have exact dates for them yet, but we have 3 shows on the boards. One is our continuation of our popular series. The Time Traveling Drag Queens are coming back. So we have 2 years ago, we did a show called Time Traveling Drag Queens. It's about 3 drag queens who find a time travel device. And in the first installment, they went back to the 1940s and helped a USO club put on a show. So it was filled with all sorts of great 40s music. Last year, they went to the 1980s and helped a high school put on prom. So it was all 80s music. This year, they're going to the 1960s. So you're going to hear lots of great music from the 1960s.
Love it.
After that, we're bringing back our murder mystery. We do a fun murder mystery every year where you meet the characters and they sing a song. So like, for instance, last year it was a disco show. So it took place in a nightclub in the 1970s, in 1979. You'd meet all the characters. They all sing a song. In this case, it was disco. Different. It's not going to be disco this year. And then at intermission, the audience gets on their phone and they're able to vote for who the killer is, who got killed, and how they got killed. And then we change the second act based on how they voted. So basically, I write all different permutations of what that looks like. And after intermission, we go, okay, we're doing this scene and that scene, and you're dead and you're alive and you're the killer and you're and then we.
I was gonna, yeah. Do you have you already factored out all the potentials
every single possibility? Yep.
Okay.
And so everybody has to learn multiple versions of scenes, and some scenes get cut and others get added in, and like everybody, there's the murderer always has a song at the end. So the murderer, everybody has to learn the murderer song because they might be the murderer.
Right. Is
so
it my night?
but only because we only do a few performances of that, then like only at most 3 people. But the cool thing about it is that like our last show, we did 3 performances of this, and it was different every night. The audience voted for different people every single night, and so it became a different show. Anyway, then after that, we're going to be doing a sequel to our Christmas show that we did this last year. It was called Christmas in Mistletoe Falls. It was a parody of Hallmark type Christmas movies. I don't, not that I know anything about that. That I'm hoping that they never ever see because they'll never let me write anhave one again. Anyway, we're going to do
that's true. I doubt that's true.
We're going to do a sequel to that for Christmas. So those are the 3 big things we've got coming up. We have some other stuff in the works But those are the big ones.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So that's everything that's going on with Savannah Cabaret. Now, between Rick and myself, we're trying to build up this local community experience with Savannah Repertory. Sorry, not Savannah Repertory.
But
Well, a lovely group. This is the Savannah Performance Alliance and On Stage Savannah, which is the website that pairs up with that. So we're doing some work in the background to build that up for the community and make it a more robust experience, as well as a place where people from out of town can come and find out about shows that are going on all the time in Savannah, and make this a place where it's more of a destination for people to come see theater and live performance. So I know no one asked me, but I went ahead and said
no. It's hugely important. Chris and I have talked a lot about. There is lots of great theater around town. There's art, there's dance, there's all sorts of stuff. But everybody's sort of off kind of doing their own thing. And what we're looking to do is bring everybody together into a cohesive arts community that we can all support each other. And one of the things I do before every show during my curtain pitch is I run down a list of all of the performances that are coming up at other theaters. Nobody pays me to do that. I don't get a cut of their ticket sales. I just think it's important to support live theater in our community. And so what we want to do is get everybody on board to do those kinds of things. And because I do honestly believe that the more theater you go to, the more theater you will go to. You start becoming in the habit of, okay, well, what's playing this weekend?
Right.
This had such a fun time at that show. What's playing? I'm going to have time this 2 weekends from now. What's playing? And so that starts to build. That's the way to build an arts community.
Yes.
And an audience for an arts community.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
I'll make it down there someday, Chris.
You will. I don't know, man. I saw your wife was posting about going to New Orleans, and I mean, gosh.
Well, that's
a
a cathartic drink fest.
We're their friendlier cousin. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'll tell you a real quick story. So once, a long time ago, before I actually moved here, but it was here, a drag queen said to me, Charleston, Savannah, and New Orleans are very similar. They have similar architecture, similar history in terms of how they were founded.
Right.
But Charleston is very polished and very, proper and upright. Savannah's got a little bit of a naughty side. And then New Orleans, it's, hey, show me your, right? So she said, and so here's how it goes. Charleston is the wife, Savannah's the mistress, and New Orleans is the dirty, dirty whore. So,
all right.
And it fits. It really fits. So I landed in the middle. I landed I became the mistress.
That's I'm gonna tell Noelle that, because she aspires that if in a perfect world, where would we live? Charleston is at the top of her list.
Okay. All right.
But
you should just land in the middle. That's what I'm saying. Just land.
Well, we haven't been, so we need to visit. We need
there
to
you go.
take the temperature.
And you can drink in the streets here too.
I'm good.
New Orleans for that.
Fine.
You can take your to-go cups out there.
You show me where the best Bloody Mary is, and we're good.
I will work on it.
Exactly.
All right,
man. This has been wonderful, Rick.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it has been a wealth. It has been a wealth, and I think part of this process for both Bradley and I are to push ourselves to further our creative juices and stop locking it up into that 60-foot guinea pig. Because it's got a lot in there. It's a meaty guinea pig. I'll just say that. Mm-hmm. So thanks again. Any last words, Bradley?
I think go brush your teeth.
Go brush your teeth.
Comb your hair.
What else? The most important thing.
And
most
call your mom.
Thing. Call your mom. Exactly.
Yeah. She loves you.
She does.
That's it.
Absolutely does.
All right.
Go call your mom. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
Bye. And
Bye.
do we play? I can't remember. Do we play the thing on the outro?
Dude, you're the producer.
I know. Sometimes my production quality is like, all right, see you later, folks. We're just going to put up the screen now.
Do stop. Please stop. The course is mighty weird. The course is mighty weird. just stop.